That's right, time for your daily dose of trig. Well, like most things that we do, when we throw trig in there, it gets a little bit more complicated than the other ones. So, for this one, don't write down what I'm going to do here. To start off, I'm going to show you a common mistake or something that you might struggle with starting off with these is not always knowing what to make u. It's a little bit tougher with the trig ones. So we've been talking about how we need it to be an inside function. So if you look at this and you look at what we've done so far today, you may think to do this. Again, don't write this, just pay attention. I'm going to show you the wrong way to set it up first, kind of show you why it's wrong, and then we'll do the right way. You can copy that. But you may think that u should be 5t, right? Because that's inside. We're taking the sine of 5t, cosine cubed of 5t, and that wouldn't be a bad idea to start off with, especially new to doing this. Well, if we did that, then du would be 5 dt. So each of these would become u, and we have the dt. We're just missing the 5. So we would multiply the inside by 5, outside by 1/5. We get 1/5 times antiderivative of cosine cubed of u times sine of u du. Here's our problem. This is still complicated. We can't take the antiderivative of this. If there was a plus or a minus, then we could do the antiderivative of the sine of u part, but this cubed is making things complicated. So sometimes you may try this, you may try u substitution and do the wrong thing. That's okay. As long as you realize, okay, this isn't going to work, I need to go back to the drawing board. There's got to be something else that we can make u. So in this case, right, this was too small, right? This little thing, when we put 5t in for u, it didn't simplify this enough. So what we have to do is think maybe a little bit bigger. That's something that's still an inside function, right? Something that's happening, has something happening to it, but maybe in a little bit larger fashion. So this, not going to work. We've got to go back and figure out something else for u. Well, if we look at this, cosine cubed of 5t, there's really like three things going on here. This is the same, remember, as cosine of 5t, that whole thing cubed. Now, you don't necessarily have to write it that way, but for now, at least, it helps us to kind of visualize and see that right here, cosine of 5t is an inside function. It's being raised to the third power. That's what we're going to make our u. U is going to be cosine of 5t. All right, that's going to become our u. And you may say, wait a minute, there's a lot of stuff left here. But du is a little bit more complicated than the ones we've done before because we have to use chain rule to find that. Derivative of cosine is negative sine. By the way, you should be copying this down now if you haven't been already. Um, Negative sine of 5t. And then we have to multiply by the derivative of the inside. So derivative of 5t is just 5. So our du is negative 5 sine of 5t dt. Well, the dt is represented already inside of here. The sine of 5t. Only thing we're missing, as usual, is that integer, that constant. So we want to multiply inside by negative 5, outside by negative 1/5. Now we have everything represented that we can replace with du. So we have negative 1/5 times, this is u to the third, all of this is du. So we went from a very big complicated one to something very simple again. Something that we can take the antiderivative of. So negative 1/5 equals, I'm sorry, not equals, times the antiderivative of this. We're adding 1 to the exponent, multiplying by the reciprocal, and adding c. So negative 1 over 20 times u to the fourth. Well, u is cosine of 5t. We can have that whole thing in parentheses to the fourth. Or, remember, that's just the same as cosine to the fourth of 5t plus c.